مرحبا وأهلا بكم في برنامج داخل واشنطن. معكم مضيفكم روبرت ساتلوف. هذا التوقيت غير عادي للكونغرس. كل يوم يتابع ملايين الأمريكيين محاكمة الرئيس الولايات المتحدة، ولكن بدلا من محامي إدعاء يستعرضون وقائع القضية، يوجد 7 من أعضاء مجلس النواب يديرون الإجراءات، وبدلا من 12 محلفا في قاعة محكمة يوجد 100 محلف يجلسون في قاعة مجلس الشيوخ الأمريكي. أولاك مشاهدين لا يصدرون حكما على الرئيس وحسب، إنهم يصدرون حكما كذلك على مدى حكم أعضاء مجلسي النواب والشيوخ. تركز هذه الحلقة من البرنامج على العالم الخاص للبرلمان، عالم المشرعين والموظفين والجماعات الضغط والصحفيين. إنه عالم كائن بذاته، متفرعة من واشنطن، والتي هي في حد ذاتها مدينة تختلف عن أي مدينة في أمريكا، وعالم متميز مثل البرلمان يحتاج إلى صحيفته الخاصة. لمناقشة تفاصيل العالم الفريد للبرلمان وكيف يحصل الأشخاص الذين يعيشون ويعملون هناك على المعلومات التي تؤثر على السياسة في أمريكا وحول العالم، يسرني أن أرحب بيتر جرينبرغر ناشر ذا هيل، وهي الصحيفة المتخصصة التي تغطي أخبار تلك المؤسسة المرموقة. Welcome back to داخل Washington. It's that great domed building at the far end of Pennsylvania Avenue, the United States Capitol, and it houses a world unto itself. A world of the House, a world of the Senate. Thousands of people work there every day, and they read a special newspaper to learn about what goes on in that world. That is The Hill, and I'm delighted to be welcomed by the publisher of The Hill, Peter Greenberger. Peter, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a busy day on the Hill, as always.
It is a busy day, as always. So let me just ask you generally about the challenges of reporting for that very special environment of Capitol Hill. First, how would you define your readership?
Sure. So The Hill, as you mentioned, is a must-read inside the Beltway here in Washington, D.C. And for the last 25 years, we were founded in 1994, we have covered the politics, the policy, the personalities of the people making the laws and shaping the policies here in Washington, D.C. So our readership consists of people here in Washington who, for a living, have to follow the conversations and the ins and outs of what's happening in the Capitol Dome. But it also includes a huge number of politically engaged citizens and policymakers and thought leaders across the country. So thehill.com reaches over 34 million monthly uniques, which is about 12 or 13% of the US digital population. So yes, we see ourselves as a must-read Bible of the Beltway, but we are also now reaching your average American who is interested in finding out what's happening in the Capitol.
Wow, so it's a specialized newspaper for the insiders, but it also reaches the four corners of the country.
That's right, and I think that's what makes us unique with respect to many other political and news organizations in town and nationally, which is that we don't contain much lifestyle news. We don't have a food section. We don't have an entertainment section. This is all about news and politics and policy. So we believe our readers, by definition, are very much interested in those topics.
Very good. And what special qualities do you look for, say, in a journalist who's going to focus on this intensely political set of issues?
I leave all of the newsroom decisions, of course, to the newsroom and our editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack, who's been with The Hill 17, 18, 19 years. But I think what sets The Hill apart, too, is our strictly bipartisan positioning, which means that we seek to approach every news story every comment, every quote, everything happening here in DC, right down the middle. And what we've been pleased to see is that we've been recognized as such. So for instance, Harvard University puts out a study on partisanship of leading publications every election year. And according to their metrics, the Hill came right down the center, right down the middle in terms of reporting the news about the election in a very nonpartisan way, or you could say in a very bipartisan way. So we're looking for reporters, we're looking for editors who see the world that way, which is just present the facts. Tell people what happened today on the Hill, what did people say on the Hill, how that may impact their lives, but do our best not to take a position one way or the other.
You used a very politically loaded term in Washington today, facts. I mean, it's not easy to come by facts these days.
Well, you'll notice in this Harvard study, for instance, the white space between us and our competitors is growing. It's very hard to remain strictly in the middle. It's very hard to report the facts. As you suggest, there's some controversy about that. So again, what we seek to do is report what's happening and what was said. In the article, of course, we can provide commentary from different sides, but we're reporting what happened, what did he or she say, and then we're allowing the readers to make a decision.
So if I'm an advertiser, is this a good way to get my idea, let alone a product, but to get my idea in front of legislators and other powerful people?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear from the publisher that yes, we think it is, because again, we collectively haven't seen this much interest in Washington since maybe the 1960s. Every day there's a tweet, every day there is a comment that drives more and more attention and conversation about what's happening here in DC. So just because of the great interest in politics, we're seeing an increase in readership. But we also believe that our bipartisan positioning allows us to reach a larger addressable audience than our competitors who maybe skew a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, meaning we believe we're about as far right as a liberal will go to find news and political information they find credible, and we're about as far left as a conservative person in America will go to find political information that they find credible. And so what we think that provides not only our readers but our advertisers is a non-toxic environment to reach people who are politically interested, who are politically engaged, political elites really across the country, in a way that won't threaten their brand because we're not skewing too far to one side or the other, which, as you know, has gotten some brands into trouble over the past few years.
Right. So let me ask you this. If you cover Capitol Hill and the legislative process in great detail, extremely informative, what separates, say, a newspaper like yours from a gazette that just relates what the legislative business is that's going on?
What we're seeking to do as a publication here in DC and titled The Hill, we seek to provide a much more insider look at what's happening. We're providing news and information that really only our reporters can get based upon their long contacts and relationships on the Hill. And so what we want to do is provide information to people who either need it for their job, as many people here in Washington do. It's a must read, again, based upon the work you're doing that day, but also make it accessible. So those engaged citizens around the country can also have a chance to see what's going on. There's a classic saying here in America that if you are not at the table, you're on the menu, meaning you might be part of the feast if you don't have a say in understanding what's happening. And so what we want to do is let our readers be a part of the conversation so they have a greater understanding of the laws and policies and debates that are happening in Washington that will have an impact on their lives and their communities.
And how do you cover issues that are like intrinsically partisan, that only exist because they are political, whether it's an intra-party election for leadership, which is all about this personality running against that personality, or something like, I don't know, the Benghazi hearings, or we're going to get to impeachment right after the break, but issues that are fundamentally political in nature.
It's not easy, and it seems like it's getting harder over the last few years. But again, what we do is strive in our reporting as well as in our social media posting and everything else that we produce, our video content, is very much to allow people to see the facts clearly. What was said, what are the conversations happening on the Hill, or as you mentioned, in intra-party discussions and debates, and attempt to take a very middle-of-the-road view of it in terms of reporting just those facts. Our editor-in-chief, Bob, likes to say, the Hill allows you to see clearly. So can we present the facts to people, what happened, what is going on, in a way that is very clear and accessible and allows the reader to get a little more understanding and to make their own decisions.
Very good. So when we come back after the break, I'm going to ask Peter about impeachment and how this special, unique moment in time is being covered by his newspaper, and how he thinks Americans are viewing the coverage and the facts of what are going on the floor of the United States Senate. In just a moment. Again, my guest today is Peter Greenberger. Peter was recently named publisher of the venerable nonpartisan Washington publication, The Hill, a must-read news source covering Capitol Hill and American politics. He also served as director of global brands and agencies at Twitter, overseeing relationships with global advertising partners. Earlier in his career, Peter led Google's first political advertising team. Well, that's certainly taken off.
It has. It's an interesting time. As you may know, a lot of these political teams and political advertising is coming under much debate.
Absolutely.
And evolution. So,
let me ask you, so how about political advertising in the Hill itself?
Sure. So again, my background, having come from some of the platforms, started the political sales team at Google many years ago, 2007, really when we were teaching the internet to campaigns and to Washington, and then on to Twitter, where I started and led that political sales team. And in both cases, at both Google and Twitter, they have taken a bit of a step back to think about how they're going to approach political advertising in this environment. I think it is important to allow political advertisers access to the same channels as other advertisers have. It's a question of freedom of speech, and there should be some rules and guidelines and terms and conditions that must be followed, but we're a firm believer in that, and we're certainly open to political advertisers at the Hill, and eager to work with them to help them reach our very politically engaged audience.
And if my name were Vladimir Putin from the Russian Institute of Political Studies, could I buy an ad in the Hill?
We would have to follow the law on that, so we wouldn't allow foreign advertisers to impact the election.
All right. So let me ask you about impeachment. This doesn't happen every day. So what are you doing special to provide your readers unique insight into this process?
Sure. We are, as always, striving to cover this very radioactive, very partisan issue in as nonpartisan a way as possible. I can say that it is a huge topic of interest. We're seeing audience growth and numbers and video views greatly exceeding anything that we've ever seen before. Could be a combination between impeachment as well as the election starting to heat up on the Democratic side. And again, the challenge for us is to try to cover this in a way that does not show a bias one way or the other. And so, as Senator Lamar Alexander recently was thinking about which way he would vote with respect to witnesses being called for the trial in the Senate, our reporters were covering that very closely. They were reporting in real time the deliberations that the senator from Tennessee was going through, and then again reporting it in a very straightforward way. He's made his decision. This is what the decision is. These are the ramifications, and now we can continue to cover the story. So it is a very challenging time in American politics. It's a very divisive time, and we see our role as reporting the facts of what's happening in Washington, D.C., and hoping that by providing that openness and that sunshine, if you will, then that is the best way for people to make up their own minds and make the best decisions.
Taking a step back from just the Hill itself, but looking at media more generally, do you think that media reportage of impeachment has done a good job? Has it enhanced the reputation of the media? or sadly less so?
I think we're in a very challenging time with respect to the media and with respect to attacks on the media, freedom of the press, but also the credibility of the media in the eyes of the American people.
Who are two or three of the senators and congressmen who love to be in your pages and are easy interviews, and who are the two or three of the toughest
I'm not sure
people to get in your pages?
Narrowing it down to two or three who would like to be written about in Washington, D.C. is a challenge. But what I'll say is that we've had great success getting access to members of Congress, having them not only be quoted, and again, it's probably hard to find a member of Congress who will refuse to be quoted, so that's not a problem. It's more a question of editing and curation. But we've also had great success asking them to send in op-eds, for instance. So we'll do a special report occasionally on a topic of interest, maybe healthcare, maybe senior care, maybe the environment, energy. And what we'll do is we'll ask specific members of Congress who have legislation pending or that they've proposed, and we'll have them submit op-eds so they can speak in their own voice about why they support this legislation and why it's important for America. I'll also mention that we've had great success with Hill TV, and Hill TV is the only digital-first political video show here in D.C. We run a show called Rising every morning from 9 to 10. And we have had everybody from the President of the United States, who has not been shy about voicing his opinions, to Speaker Pelosi, to other newsmakers in town. And so, again, the challenge is not getting members of Congress to talk. Sometimes it's getting them to quiet down.
All right, so you've just described this remarkable evolution and this explosion of online readership. You're the publisher. What's the next horizon?
We have been focused on, again, providing our readership with this nonpartisan news source. I'd say two areas that we're growing very fast would be that video I mentioned. So we're now seeing nearly 1 million views a day of our Hill TV programming on our YouTube channel. And then again, many hundreds of thousands on our own site. So that is growing very quickly. We're excited about the opportunities in video. It's a great way to tell very compelling, engaging stories. I'll also mention that something we're doing more of here in town, but also around the country, perhaps around the world, are events, 3D journalism. So what we think is that getting people together in a room to have a conversation about a certain topic, again, whether that's trade or healthcare or the economy, pulling in members of Congress, people from the administration, thought leaders, people from nonprofits and associations, and giving them a chance to tell their story is another great way to do journalism. And as publisher, it's a great way to bring in sponsors who want to be associated with or have a chance to share their own message on those important topics. So I'd say between video, between our events, we aim to continue to grow that audience.
Absolutely fascinating. Peter Greenberger, thank you so much for joining us at Washington.
Thanks so much for having me.
Every day, millions of Americans are turning in to watch a remarkable television show, Impeachment Theater. Prosecutors, all politicians, and defense attorneys, all famous lawyers, not politicians, are fighting it out on the floor of the United States Senate, with the Chief Justice of the United States overseeing the proceedings. At the heart of the trial is this question: is withholding aid to Ukraine to compel its leader to open a corruption investigation into the son of the president's chief political adversary an impeachable crime? It's a good question, a question on which reasonable people can disagree. For a nation that can barely muster 60% voter turnout in a presidential election, this is a civics lesson on steroids. The outcome of the trial seems to be a foregone conclusion. It would take nearly 20 Republican senators to vote against the head of their party to reach the 67 votes needed for a guilty verdict. Barring some new revelation, that is very unlikely, and everyone knows it. One reason it's unlikely is that Republicans have retained remarkable discipline. As Will Rogers once said, Democrats never agree on anything. That's why they're Democrats. If they agreed with each other, they'd be Republicans. So far, not a single Republican has broken ranks and suggested that he or she will join with Democrats in seeking to convict the president. By contrast, it was the fracturing of the wall of support in his Republican Party in 1973 and 74 that convinced then-President Richard Nixon to resign rather than face the embarrassment of impeachment. But the prospect of certain defeat hasn't stopped the Democrats from pursuing impeachment, from mounting a stirring legal attack on the president, and from pressing for additional witnesses to appear on the floor of the Senate, which would take an already frenzied political atmosphere to new heights. They are fighting as though they believe they have a chance to win. Why pursue impeachment when the outcome seems clear? Because the real court is not the 100 senators, but the court of public opinion, whose jurors are the more than 125 million people who will vote in the November election. There'll be one verdict in the Senate. There'll be another verdict in ballot boxes across America. And as important as the Senate verdict will be, the verdict in November will be the one that really counts. بهذا نصل إلى نهاية هذه الحلقة من برنامج داخل واشنطن. إذا كانت لديكم أي استفسارات أو تعليقات حول هذه الحلقة وخاصة حول أثر الأزل على حملة الرئاسية، أرجو أن تتواصلوا معي عبر تويتر على هاشتاغ Inside Washington أو أن تراسلوني مباشرة على @RobSatloff. سأراكم الأسبوع المقبل وإلى أن ألقاكم. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.
اقتراع ولاية أيوا الاستطلاعي المنتهي أيوا سترو بول. فيما مضى مثل اقتراع أيوا أول منافسة كبرى ضمن تقويم فعاليات الحزب الجمهوري. هذا الاقتراع أتاح الفرصة للناخبين المحافظين لتوجيه سير الانتخابات التمهيدية الجمهورية، وكان يجري قبل 18 شهراً من الانتخابات خلال فصل الصيف في أراضي أمريكا الزراعية الشاسعة. الرئيسان جورج بوش وجورج بوش الابن والمرشحان للرئاسة ميت رومني وبوب دول كلهم فازوا باقتراع أيوا سترو. هذا التصويت بدأ في معرض المقاطعة، وهو مهرجان حصاد تقليدي يقام خلال فصل الصيف في أنحاء مختلفة من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. الناس يحضرون المعرض لأهداف استجمامية: أكل المشاوي، مشاهدة الأبقار الفائزة بالأوشحة الزرقاء، أفضل فطائر التفاح في الولاية، اللحف المصنوعة يدوياً والحائزة على جوائز. إلا أن ولاية أيوا غيرت الشكل التقليدي للمهرجان بدعوة المرشحين لرئاسة الجمهورية إلى هذا الحدث. ناخبو أيوا كانوا يتعرفون على الساسة في معرض المقاطعة، ثم يغمسون أصابعهم في الحبر ويدلون بأصواتهم لصالح مرشحيهم. خلافاً للانتخابات الحقيقية، هذه الأصوات لم يكن لها قيمة في واقع الأمر، بل هي مجرد استطلاع، فهي لم تكن ملزمة وكان يمكن أن تتغير خلال الانتخابات الفعلية في العام التالي. إعلان نتائج اقتراع أيوا الشكلي كان يحمل تأثيراً على السباق الرئاسي. زعماء الحزب الجمهوري أوقفوا هذا التصويت الاستطلاعي بعدما ربحه ميت رومني، لكنه خسر البيت الأبيض أمام باراك أوباما. هؤلاء الزعماء يعتقدون أن اقتراع أيوا سترو دفع مرشحين جادين إلى الانسحاب من السباق قبل حتى أن يبدأ. دونالد ترامب كان أول رئيس جمهوري لا يشارك في هذا الاقتراع منذ عقود.